Hey YouTube, what's up? Gonna do another Doctor Who video. This is mainly a post Series 11 video. I know I already did one where I reviewed each episode, but this is one that I wanted to do just kind of as a follow-up after the New Year's special. Okay, so the ratings are in for the New Year's special, and it was the lowest overnight figures for any annual Doctor Who event since the revival in 2005. And it was also the lowest overnight figures for an episode of Doctor Who during thus far in the Jodie Whittaker era, which is very unusual because normally the specials have always scored higher ratings than the episodes that are within the season that preceded them, mainly because the specials have usually fallen on Christmas Day, and that's usually whenever the families they're together and there's more people in the room to watch Doctor Who. I've already seen a couple of articles where there's already some of the official media are already at least attempting to acknowledge that Series 11 wasn't the overwhelming success that they originally claimed it was. Radio Times did an article where they were talking, they interviewed some Doctor Who fans, at least they claimed they did, and they were talking about things that they would like to see fixed or changed in the next season, which won't air till 2020. A couple of things I agreed with, but most of it I didn't. Okay, but before I get into that as well, first I want to talk about the New Year's special resolution. There's a lot to talk about regarding this episode, and I don't know how much of this, what I'm about to say, is true, but to me, when I look at the grand scheme, the bigger picture, to me the pieces kind of fit together, and this, to me, based on what has happened in the last 2 months, to me this is what I think was probably this is what was happening behind the scenes. Before Series 11 aired, it was released publicly that they were also filming a Christmas special along when they filmed the episodes for Series 11. They were also filming a Christmas special about a month before the special aired. Now, keep in mind, this is nearly 2 months after Series 11 was already broadcast. Series 11 had already been on the air for nearly 2 months now. But it was around the beginning of November, I think, is when we first got this rumor that the special was actually going to be moved to New Year's instead of Christmas Day. And then like a week later, it was changed back. There was like an official announcement that there would be a Christmas special. It was like the beginning of December, as we got closer to Christmas, they changed it again. They changed and said that no, it's actually going to be a New Year's special this time because we're doing something new. Okay, so already they were flip-flopping back and forth, and I don't know if some of that may have just been rumors, but I don't think so. For those of you who have seen Resolution, it was basically a Dalek story, but it was, I mean, you could barely bill it as that. To me, the story, the plot in Resolution felt very disjointed. To me, okay, this is my theory. I think this is what happened, and I think this is why they were flip-flopping back and forth leading up to the special. I think Chibnall had a different script written altogether for a Christmas special, and I think that script is what they shot when they were producing Series 11. Okay, so I think that the original script that Chibnall wrote and that they at least partly shot during the Series 11 production block didn't have the Daleks in it. I don't even think it didn't have any classic villains in it. And I think that as we grew closer to the end of Series 11, let's say after we were like halfway through Series 11, a pattern was beginning to emerge in the ratings. They weren't just kind of oscillating up and down. They were showing a steady decline. By this time, the scores on outlets like Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic, the audience scores were they were unfavorable. I mean, back then, I think it was the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes was like 40-something%, and now it's like down to 24% or something. But at the time, it was already below 50%, and we weren't even all the way through the season yet. So I think what happened was, I think that Chibnall saw what was happening in terms of viewer response and ratings, and he knew that unless he did something different with that special, that it too was going to be a flop. So I think that at the last minute, I think he reworked the script for that special to include a Dalek. It was as if it was like a last-ditch effort to try to claw back some viewers. Because the script was reworked, they had to reshoot some scenes, and I think this is the reason why the air date got bumped back to New Year's Day instead of airing on Christmas Day. And I also think the reworking of the script is why the story sucks so bad. Why the narrative was so disjointed. Some parts of it were carried over from his original version, like the whole part, the aspect of it where like Ryan's dad comes back, and then the scene where they're in the cafe. Those elements I think were carried over from the original version, but the archaeological dig underneath in the sewers, that element may have been carried over. As far as finding a Dalek, I think that aspect of it was changed. I think that was what was added to the script, because the episode opens with this completely unrelated sequence where we're like back in medieval times, you know, and it's kind of like it's explaining the script to us. It's explaining the plot to us. Where like there was this great battle and they killed this Dalek and they cut it up into a bunch of pieces, and then they took one piece of it to different corners of the earth to bury it and blah 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 whatever. But it was just like none of that was revealed later in the story. It was all info dump right at the beginning of the episode to try to kind of set things up. So it was almost like all that sequence was shot later. It was shot after the fact. Like it was that sequence was probably one of the reasons why why the broadcast got moved back to New Year's. Because from what I've understand, everyone has told me that New Year's Day is not a day when people sit down and watch television. They're usually visiting with family, or although that's visiting with family is what people do on Christmas Day too. So why would it work for Christmas Day but not for New Year's Day? And by the way, there's already been a special on New Year's Day, The End of Time Part 2. Granted, that was Tennant's final story, but it had, I think, ratings were over 10 million. The defense that I'm being told now is that New Year's Day is when people don't watch television, and that was why the episode did so bad in the ratings. Okay, but if that's true, okay, if it's common knowledge in the UK that New Year's Day is not a day when people watch television, why in Sagan's name would they decide to move the broadcast to that day? Why would they move it from Christmas Day, where it has consistently brought in high ratings, to a day where they know in advance people don't watch television? That makes no sense. The media sold us, they gave us this whole spiel about how they were moving it to New Year's Day in an attempt to capitalize on higher viewership or some BS like that. Well, if that's the case, okay, if that's to be believed, if the BBC thought that moving to New Year's Day would be a good move in terms of viewership, why would they think that if it's common knowledge that people don't watch television on New Year's Day? So, okay, so that defense is dead in the water. Okay, none of that adds up. I think the real reason they moved it to New Year's Day was because Chibnall had to rework the script at the last minute, because he had to rework it to include a classic villain in an attempt to claw back viewers, because they think that including a classic villain, in this case the Dalek, which is arguably the most recognizable villain from Doctor Who, they thought including that in the story would entice viewers to come back and watch. That brings me to the next part of this video. Okay, now I'm going to explain why it didn't work. Okay. Well, first of all, you kept it a secret during the trailers and everything. You didn't advertise that it was going to be a Dalek story, so it's no wonder that nobody came back to watch it. But I think that even if you had advertised that it was going to be a Dalek story, I don't think it would have worked anyway. Okay, and here's why. During the Moffat era, Moffat relied heavily on nostalgia to try to keep his series afloat. He brought back the classic Cybermen. He brought back the classic Daleks. He kept bringing back classic Doctors. Then he brought back the Ice Warriors. I mean, Moffat he poured on the nostalgia thick right from the beginning in Series 5, because I mean they reworked the exterior of the TARDIS to look like the William Hartnell version. the doctor, the costume that the doctor was wearing was kind of it was reminiscent of the second Doctor with the bow tie and the tweed jacket and everything, which I liked. I liked the the 11th Doctor's costume. To Moffat's credit, Series 5 wasn't that bad. Moffat said before Series 5 aired that he was returning Doctor Who to its roots, and for the most part, during Series 5, you get that vibe. You get a traditional Doctor Who vibe. So I give Series 5 a pass. It's my favorite season during the Moffat era. Eventually, viewers get burnt out on nostalgia. Okay, nostalgia will only carry you so far. Okay, eventually the series gets to where it's oversaturated with nostalgia and references and callbacks and whatnot. Okay, and this is the same mistake that Star Wars made as well. I think. I mean, from what I haven't seen Rogue One, but from what I've understood from the Plinkett review, it was pretty much nothing but references to the original Star Wars trilogy from start to finish. Nostalgia is nice, but it can't sell a series alone, and that brings us back to Resolution, the New Year special. Okay, Chibnall tried to save that story by depending on nostalgia. The Daleks, it was one of the classic villains. It didn't work, okay, because for one, you've put off so many viewers already during Series 11 because of your socio-political sermonizing that it doesn't matter how much you rework that script to make it appeal to classic Doctor Who fans. They aren't going to come back. You've lost them for good, okay? And I warned about this way before Series 11 aired, okay, that if they went down this road, they were going to permanently damage the fandom, and that these people were going to jump ship and they weren't going to come back, no matter what you did. But the other thing is, as I said, the Moffat era was nothing but nostalgia. It was nothing but classic villains, okay? And I think that viewers they're sick of the Daleks. They're sick of the Cybermen. They're sick of you milking the success of the original series to try to sell your series. You were on the right track, Chibnall, with Series 11 by not including any classic villains. You had there were some great monsters in this series. Whatever they were in Demons of the Punjab, that was the monsters in that story. They were a neat design. There were some great looking monsters. It's just a pity that they were so underused in that story, and they ended up being like benign. They served literally no purpose in that plot other than just to be there. You're just on the wrong track in terms of your writing. You're not focusing on quality science fiction. You're focusing on a socio-political PC agenda, and it's so over the top that it's become intrusive. I mean, even progressives, both male and female, have been turned off. That's how over the top it's been. So now let's go back to the Radio Times article. Okay, the Radio Times article was listing a whole bunch of reasons why, or it was listing a whole bunch of things that should be changed during 2020. And one of the things that they changed was they wanted Dr. Chibnall to bring back more classic villains, and that is absolutely a bad idea. Do not do that. Do not bring back more classic villains, because if you think for 1 second that you can oversaturate Series 12 with nostalgia, if you think that's going to claw back viewers, you've got another thing coming, okay? Because, as I said, the people that you've lost, they're not going to come back. I don't think they'll come back unless there's a change in both lead actor and showrunner, okay? And even then, they may not come back. This is so frustrating to me, because I was screaming from rooftops about this way before Series 11 aired. I knew that if they went down this road, it was the backlash. I mean, they were just asking for it. They were asking for backlash. Okay, so I don't want to be the one to say I told you so, but I mean, a blind man with a cane could have seen this coming. Okay, I mean, I could have told you. Anybody could have told you, and they were telling you before Series 11 aired that they did not want this. They were not happy with your decisions. So, but you did it anyway, and now you're left scratching your head. You're wondering why Resolution has a 15% approval rating from viewers on Rotten Tomatoes, and Series 11 has a 24% approval rating from viewers on Rotten Tomatoes. This is my fear now, though, is that the fandom has become so irreparably damaged by this. You've put off these people so bad that they're just not going to come back. There's nothing you can do. You can change the showrunner now. You can change the actor. You can bring back the original white walls, original style console room. You can go full-blown Philip Hinchcliffe style sci-fi horror, and they're just not. You can go full serial format. I don't think they're going to come back. You know, just because you've left a bad taste in their mouth. I did a video. It's on my channel. You can go see it if you want. It was How to Save Doctor Who. This was way before Series 11 aired. And in that video, I talked about things that Chris Chibnall could do in Series 11 that would be major steps towards saving Doctor Who. It would be major steps towards getting the ratings back up, getting the approval rating back up. It would be a start to bridging the gap between the pro-Whittaker camp and the group of fans who were dissatisfied with that casting choice. And the key to bridging that gap at the time was to return the production style of Doctor Who to its roots. Not relying. I don't mean bringing back the classic Daleks and the classic Cybermen. I don't mean visually. I don't mean like in terms of villains. I don't mean, when I say return to its roots, I'm not talking about copying the original series frame for frame. I mean looking at Philip Hinchcliffe's production style. Chibnall should have returned to serial format. They need to stop trying to make Doctor Who look like some blockbuster cinematic film, because it's not. It's a television series. Okay, it's not a blockbuster film. It never will be a blockbuster film. Okay, it's a television series, and it should be treated as such. Forget the shaky cam and the rapid jump cutting and the teal and orange color grading and all that bullshit that's you know, rife with the blockbuster movies. Just focus on telling a good science fiction. Just focus on making a good science fiction program, and because that's all that Philip Hinchcliffe cared about. He didn't even care about pleasing fans or pleasing critics or anything. He just cared about telling a good story, a good science fiction story. But the problem now, though, is when I made that video, the gap was about this wide between the Jodie Whittaker camp and the people who disapproved. Okay, and now it's like this wide. Okay, so it's because you didn't take my advice. You doubled down on what I call the Abrams method, and you doubled down on the Kathleen Kennedy Disney Last Jedi type of shit, and look what it got you. It blew up in your face just like I said it would. Okay, and instead of the gap being this wide, it's now this wide, and it's too wide now. The gap is now too wide to bridge. Okay, that's why I say that it doesn't matter now what you do in 2020 for Series 12. You can completely reformat the series and go full Philip Hinchcliffe, and even that is not going to save it at this point. Okay, it's done. I said this multiple times in other videos leading up to Series 11. This is why I was so opposed to a female doctor. It had nothing to do with gender. It was the fact that the series was in dire straits. It was on a razor edge, where it was imperative that they made the right decisions when it came to production. They needed to carefully think things through, and they needed to carefully look at what they were doing to make sure that the audience would approve of what they were doing, because they had so much at stake. The success of the franchise from this point on was hinging on whether or not people approved of Series 11. And I knew that if they went down the road that I suspected Chibnall was doing, which is the road they actually did far worse than I anticipated, but nevertheless he went the Abrams route. I knew that if you went that route, that audiences were not going to like it, because they didn't like it with Star Trek Discovery, they didn't like it with The Last Jedi, they didn't like it with Ghostbusters in 2016, so why in Sega's name would they like it this time around? I knew that the backlash from it would be so destructive that it would be more than enough to send Doctor Who over the edge, and it would be too much. It would be to the point where the franchise is now irreparable. There's no winning those viewers back. There's no winning those fans back. Okay, you've destroyed the franchise for the sake of a social political message that even pissed off the people that you were preaching to. That was why I was so opposed to this gender change, is because it was a gamble on the BBC's part. Many people have described it as jumping the shark, and I agree it was. It was a casting stunt, and I think that was they gambled that the publicity that would come from this controversial changing the Doctor to a female, they gambled that the publicity that they got from that would be enough to carry this series through. I could have told you right away that wasn't going to work, okay? Because that kind of publicity is short term, okay? It didn't even last up until when the series aired, okay? By the time Series 11 got here, people had already moved on from the first female Doctor. But that's beside the point, though. That alone is not going to sell your series, okay? People don't give a damn about whether or not she's the first female Doctor or not, okay? They care about whether or not the story is entertaining and whether or not it's enjoyable. The bottom line is, though, you gambled the entire future of the franchise. You gambled the integrity of the fandom, the future of the series on television. You gambled the series' reputation, its legacy. You put all of that on the line for the sake of this casting stunt, for the sake of appeasing a small group of people, a small group of feminists who, out of the blue, decided that they were complaining that the Doctor had always been male. And even though we've never heard from them ever before, okay, so, and then you completely reworked the series to appease this small group of people who now have already left they've left the room, because now that they've accomplished their goal of getting the Doctor changed to female, that was all they cared about. They didn't give a damn about the story. They didn't give a damn about the plot or the science fiction aspect of it, okay? Or hell, even anything that makes it Doctor Who. They didn't care about any of that. All they cared about was this franchise that is known for having a male cast in the lead role, getting that changed to a female. That is all they cared about. Make no mistake. So was it worth it? Was it worth sacrificing the fandom, your merchandise sales, your viewership, your ratings, your reputation, the legacy? Was it worth sacrificing all of that to appease these small group of people who you don't even have them now as viewers? That's why I'm so frustrated. Okay, is because it was a stupid gamble. It was a stupid gamble. Okay, it would have been like going to Las Vegas and sitting down to a poker game where you know that the table is rigged against you, and then betting all of your belongings on it. Betting like that, your house, your car, your family, your dog. No one with two brain cells to rub together would do that. I know I said in my other video that I won't be watching the next season, and I don't think I will. I mean, to be honest, I forgot that there was a special on New Year's Day. I mean, I wasn't doing anything special. I was just sitting here like dicking around on my computer. But it wasn't until I was going to pick my wife up from her grandma's that I remembered, like, oh shit, there's an episode of Doctor Who on today. If you want my advice, Chibnall, Mr. Chibnall, if you want my advice, look at modern successful sci-fi series like The Orville and Stranger Things and take cues from them. Because that is the only way Series 12 has any chance of surviving at this point, okay? And honestly, I don't think it will anyway, okay? Because if the rating, if the trend, if the decline, if it continues into Series 12, as I suspect it will, by the end of Series 12, the ratings are going to be back to the last season of Capaldi. They're going to be back to those numbers, okay? And that was when the media started floating the idea around about canceling the series. So there's still a rumor going around that Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall are both leaving after Series 12. I think that's true. I think they're both leaving at Series 12, and I think the BBC is going to pull the plug after that. So, I guess we'll see. Subscribe to my channel, because I'm sure I'll be doing more Doctor Who videos. Have a good one.